Hey everyone, Matt here on another edition of Ask Ron. Ron, how's your day going?
Going good, man. Going good.
Good, good. That's what I like to hear. All right, we have a ton of questions for today, so let's go ahead and get right into them.
All right.
The first one we have is from Robert Straker, who's out in Oregon.
Oregon. Wow.
Yep,
Couldn't get much farther away, could he? There's
right?
nothing else. Yeah.
He has two questions actually. The first one is, over the past few years, I have heard of other real estate gurus out there in lecture land and wanted to know how you compare to them. The ones
Hmm.
I've heard about are Than Merrill, Nick Fertucci, and Response Real Estate from Utah. To me, you seem more honest and upfront. You also offer your programs and teachings for a relatively fair price, and you seem to give away a lot more perks and freebies than others do.
Well, first of all, I'm older than all of them. Second of all, I think most of them are my students who have turned teachers along the way, which I helped many people do that. And I got 41 years at this. If that doesn't create experience, I'm not sure what does. And I can't possibly tell you how many millionaires we've created over the year because there's no way to calculate it. And incidentally, if anybody does tell you that, they're lying. There's no way to calculate it. And I actually continue to do this business to this very day. I've bought several houses within the last couple of months. And so I'm always polishing my craft and keeping up with the technology, which of course my team does. I'm not the technology expert, but I actually buy houses and it helps a lot to incorporate the things that you'd want to know into my teaching of buying houses. I don't have to buy houses, but I do because I can, and I don't want to stop buying them. And I want to continue dancing with the one who brung me. Do your own homework. I think there's plenty of videos out there that you can watch with me and compare them to the others. And none of them are better looking than me, by the way, just for the record.
That is a fact.
All right, all right. Might have to edit that one out. All
That's All right. Robert's second question is, what are your thoughts on time management? I don't see anyone else talking about it on your forum or resource areas.
Time management. Well, I teach it in my business management boot camp, and you are correct. It is probably a grossly under-taught subject, especially for the importance of it, because without time management, it's going to be very difficult for you to succeed. I don't care what business you're in. And frankly, most people don't have a clue. They walk around in fog all day waiting for the next calamity to slap them upside the head, putting out one emergency right after another, and they don't get anything done because they don't know how to handle their time. I don't I have a lesson on that on the Gold Club,
I was
Matt?
just about to say, it's actually, I think you just covered it in your 32 Fatal Mistakes event. I think it's one of your fatal mistakes, and that's currently on YouTube, that mistake.
Okay, I
Not
covered, but that's not going to answer your how do I fix my time management situation. That was just a short, one of them short videos. You might want to think of getting into my business management boot camp. I spend quite a bit of time on it there because honestly, it's about, if it ain't more important, it's at least as important as any other subject that we teach today. I've seen a lot of people fail because they just can't get anything done. They don't know how to manage their time, and they let other people run their lives, and they're a slave to their phone, they're a slave to their emails and their text, and they let people, waste their time day in and day out because we all got that habit. We were raised with that habit, and then of course, since the cell phones have been invented, they're one of the biggest time suckers there is right there. So it's not that you can't use all these things. You just have to learn to control them and not let them control you, and have a system to where you write down things that you need to get done immediately, not put them off because you'll forget them. Write them down and have a system to where they pop up in your daily things to do, so you don't have to remember them. One of the biggest important things about time management is you have to learn to set it and forget it, and absolutely eliminate the use of your memory. Because if you have to use your memory, you're going to be walking around in a fog like most other people are and have no control over their time.
Yeah, that's right. All right, there you go, Robert. Moving on to the next question, we have Jimmy, who's with us in Florida.
Jenny, all right, back home.
That's right. Jimmy says, I am having a hard time finding an attorney in Florida that will close a sale without title insurance. Who do you use in Florida? I use Landmark Title in Jacksonville.
Well, so do I. I don't buy title insurance, so I don't know what your problem is. I use an attorney now. Her name is Michelle Fusalo, and she works inside of Landmark Title, not for them, but with them. She works for a law firm that is really housed in Landmark Title. And you don't have to buy, I've had that conversation with her directly to make sure you don't have to buy title insurance. You're definitely going to have to get a title search. And if you close with a title company, that's what she told me. If you close with a title company and don't buy title insurance, you're going to see fees on your closing statement that are going to come close to equaling the cost of title insurance. I pay an attorney's fee of $650 and a fee to search the title, and that is it. And you should use, I mean, if you're already at Landmark, just start using Michelle. She is our real estate closing attorney.
All right. Awesome, Jimmy.
That's FUSSILO, I think. She won't be hard to find.
Yep. All right. Our next question comes from Walter. He does not give a state, but Walter says, when doing a subject to deal and putting the property in a land trust, what name or title goes on the agreement as the buyer?
You can use your name because if you're using my agreements, they're all assignable. You don't even have to worry about all that. You don't have to close in the name that's on the contract. You can close on any name you want, or if you want to, you can just use the whoever your trustee is going to be. ABC LLC, just make the buyer ABC LLC as trustee right on the contract, which makes it a lot simpler. But I got to tell you something now. You need to know this. You know, most attorneys won't even know this, so pay attention, write it down, all of you. If I put ABC LLC as trustee, as the buyer, then if somebody wanted to dispute it, there is no contract because there is no ABC LLC as trustee until the property is closed, okay? So the buyer doesn't exist yet. Just a point for you to write down in the back of your notes on your head. Somebody wanted to overturn that contract. So I always put an LLC up there, and then I close in the use that LLC as a trustee. But when I close, if my contract says ABC LLC, my deed is going to say ABC LLC as trustee. And by adding those words as trustee, ABC LLC is not the buyer of the property. Whoever the beneficial interest of that trust is the buyer. But I would like to tell you that everybody out in the world understands that, but it doesn't. They don't, and I don't care. As far as I'm concerned, that's a benefit. You know, they don't even know what I just did most of the time. But I have every right to do it. Nobody can stop me from closing in another name. Now, one caveat: if you're making an offer on an MLS property, bank owned, then the bank's going to force you to close in the name that you put right at the top of the contract. So you might want to just go ahead and put as trustee after the LLC and close in that name.
Good point.
Only applies to that.
There you go, Walter.
Good question.
That's a good answer. All right. Our next question is from Aaron, who's out in Washington. All right. Aaron says, are there situations which we would want a C corporation? What specific advantages are there to using that type of entity? And are there any disadvantages?
Yeah, both. Okay. The advantage is that it's taxed at 21% maximum taxes. And if you're making any money, you're going to be taxed way higher than that, up to 37%. And I don't know if Washington State has a state income tax or not, but you better check that out. Like in Florida, we have a state income tax of 5.5%. So in reality, using a C Corp, 26.5%. By the way, it only applies to a C Corp, not an LLC. So that's one good thing about a C Corp. That rule changed in 2018. You know, the tax rate on a C used to be close to 40%. So when Trump got that law through, let's think what that did for all the companies out there. The big companies are all C's, they're not LLCs. Cut their taxes in half. So that money went into the economy, and you think back and you remember, just by cutting those taxes on the people that generate the money in this country, the entities, exploded the economy. Seems like common sense to me, but somebody told me recently that common sense is the sense less used. I'm not sure. Okay.
I can agree.
Disadvantages is if it's an LLC, you can just take the money out anytime you want, and there's absolutely no tax consequences because your net operating income on an LLC is going to flow right through to your personal tax returns and get taxed at your personal income tax rate anyway. Of course, that's not true for a C. So in the world we're in today, it might make sense to make money in a C even more than an LLC because it's lower taxes. But caveat is, you can't just take money out of a C. You can, but if you do, it's called dividends, unless it's a salary or a bonus. Either way, you got to pay FICA and FUTA on it. But if you take money out, it's a dividend, and the C corporation cannot write it off. So it's, in other words, they're going to pay taxes on the money they gave you because they can't write it off, and then you're going to pay taxes on the money you received. However, the good news is, if you receive the money as dividends, then the maximum you're going to pay is 20% personal income taxes, and probably starting at 15% up to something like $500,000 or $600,000 a year. So if you take the corporate tax rate and you add the personal tax rate together, you're probably going to wind up paying even more than your personal tax rate. So from a tax point of view, LLCs are likely going to be better suited. I'm going through that right now on my own, to tell you the truth, right now. And then in state, and then you got state jumping in there. Like in this state, they charge me 3.8% on dividends over 250 or something like that. I can't even remember the numbers, but you're probably going to be better off with an LLC, frankly, even when you get to the 37% tax bracket.
That's a good point. All right.
How many do you think anybody understood what I just said?
I would hope so. If they listen to us, I'd hope they understand.
What I just said was have a meeting with your CPA and ask them that question.
There you go.
Well, they have the rest of your stuff to work with. They know what else is going on in your life, and that needs to be factored into that answer.
Absolutely. All right. We're down to our last two questions, Ron. Our next question is from Sean, who's out in South Carolina.
Okay.
Sean says, are you using multiple mailings to the same list with yellow letters?
No, I never did multiple mailings to the same list with yellow letters. However, we are doing multiple mailings to the foreclosure list, the people that have been filed on. We're doing multiple letters, and we're getting response off of that. In fact, bought a deal or two from it last 2 or 3 months. And in fact, in the last 2 months, I bought 2 houses off the courthouse steps during the foreclosure auction. Of course, be careful bidding on those, because you better know how long you need to put up the money. In Florida, we got to have the money to them by 4 o'clock that afternoon. Okay, ain't none of this 30-day closing crap. And you better have done your homework, because you might be bidding on something. In fact, we got a lead the other day. This poor guy, he went to the foreclosure auction and he bought the house, not realizing that what he bought was he paid the HOA off, but there's a big first mortgage underneath it. The HOA was doing the foreclosing. Okay, a second can't foreclose off a first. That's one of them seminars, and they think education is expensive. So anyway, if you're going to bid on the courthouse steps, you better understand what you're doing and have a reason to believe that what you're bidding on is the first mortgage on the property. And don't forget, that doesn't even do away with property taxes. Okay, they are always first in any city, in any state. Now, if a bank is foreclosing and their account is escrowed, then they've probably kept the taxes current. But you still better check it, because nowadays we're getting people that are more than 2 years behind on their payments since the COVID thing. That kind of changes the rules of foreclosures nowadays, because sometimes I'm closing one in the next few days. It's a condo. It's only worth 2.25. We're buying it for about 175 by bringing it current and taking over the underlying debt. But the problem is the underlying the arrearage is almost $40,000 on this property. Okay, only because it's been a long time since you made a payment. So we're moving forward to close on it, but it ain't one of my favorite deals, because I'm definitely not going to get $40,000 from a non-refundable option deposit. So, this is a good lesson for all of you listening now. There's the short game and there's the long game. Obviously, I'm not playing the short game here. I'm playing the long game. I'm probably going to have to leave 25 grand or so in that property after I buy it. But then I bought a lot of equity at that point, because remember, we're paying 175, but if I have to put up to 40, then now debt's down to about 135, and it's a 3.5% interest loan, which is another big benefit. And it's PITI. And the condo association is paying all, they're responsible for all the exterior of the property, including the water bill, mowing the yard and everything. So the tenant, there are some $400 a month dues on it, but there's a pool right outside the window. It's sitting on a waterway where there's boats parked out there and all of that cool stuff, which actually is kind of rare for any place in the country nowadays for $225,000.
Yeah.
But it's just a box. It's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, 1,100 square foot box. But I had to make the business decision: do I want to buy it based on how much money is owed because of the long period of time that people have gone by where they haven't been foreclosed on nowadays? So you got to make sure you understand the numbers and your own business plan. Okay, like I said, I'm in it for the long term. I just wanted the property. I'm going to lose money on the front end, but I'll get it back very quickly. And remember, if I don't get anything else, I get debt pay down, I get appreciation, I get depreciation. And then, of course, this is the kind of property where if I put a tenant buyer in there and collect 10 or 15 grand from them, I know darn well they're not going to buy it. So, this one of those, I've got 2 or 3 of those where I'm on my 5th or 6th tenant buyer, and I don't expect them to buy. If they buy, great. Okay, there's still a bunch of money there. I'll get a closing, but I don't expect them to buy. So therefore, I'm going to have money buried in this property for a little while. But what the heck, you got to do something with the money. The rate of return is going to be pretty healthy, way more than any CD. I can promise you that.
That's right.
Geez, that was a long answer to a short question, wasn't it?
Yeah, I like that answer. That was a good answer.
Yeah. I mean, that one's going on right this minute.
All right. Just kidding about the 2 more questions. We have actually 3 more questions. The next question is from Carlos, who is out in California.
Carlos
says, what if the market is down and the value of the house has dropped below the agreed upon selling price you have with the tenant buyer? They want to exercise their option to buy. Would a bank extend the loan for the selling price if the house doesn't appraise at that price?
No, bank is not going to overfinance the property, but don't worry, Carlos. In fact, what you just described was kind of the normal thing in 2009, 2010, 2011, after the crash, like here in Florida and in Southern California and Arizona, wherever there was sun, the values dropped about 40%, like overnight. Okay. And that's where the ACTS program came from, assignment of contracts and terms. We go out and get them. They were over leveraged, so we put them under a lease purchase, but 10-year lease purchase, 10-year option. And then we put a tenant buyer in there and collect 10 or 15 grand. They all knew it was over financed. They didn't care. They had 10 years. What do they care? If you're not going to go cash out the property, it don't really make any difference what it's worth, does it? Okay. They had no intention. They had 10 years to fix whatever broke that they couldn't qualify at the bank, but they had 10 years for the equity to catch back up. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. And in fact, exceeded what it was back then. So it wasn't a big deal. I imagine what they were figuring was most can happen is that I end up losing my deposit 10 years from now if things don't go right. But now I got a place to live that I control for 10 years. And nobody's making the rules for me. And then and plus, get this. If the market did catch back up, if they have the option to buy it, then they have the outright to sell it. So if the equity did catch back up, they could sell it anytime they want and keep all the proceeds. That wasn't a very big risk on their part, just because of the long term that I created in the deals. So here's another answer for you. If you put a tenant buyer in there and the market drops below what you're asked for the property, that is not your fault. And frankly, it is not your responsibility to fix it. It's the buyer's problem, if you want to look at it that way. So maybe they can come up with the extra money, or maybe they can trade you something like a car or a boat or whatever it is you want in life or don't want, but can sell. Or I have an addendum. It's called a short sale addendum, which the seller would sign at that time, giving us permission to ask the bank for a short sale. And a bank will almost always agree to that short sale when they know they're not getting killed. All they're doing is reducing the sales price and taking a loss on whatever above that the borrower owes. So it's not that big of a loss to begin with, usually. And they, especially when they got somebody standing by waiting to buy the house and cash them out. That's a pretty easy short sale to get negotiated. So I'd give them this addendum that I got. Basically, I go get the seller to sign it, what I do. And then I get with your tenant buyer who wants to buy it. And I get to the bank and give them all the facts. They definitely want all the facts, okay? And all the short sale is I'm asking the bank for permission to buy the house all cash for today's value, not for the amount of their loan. And they take the discount. And if I were doing it, I'd make sure that they're not going to hold that seller responsible for deficiency in the process. Because in reality, we're doing the bank a big favor. I mean, they may not look at it that way, but every time we bail something out of foreclosure, we're doing the bank a big favor. They don't appreciate it. I don't care. I don't need their appreciation. Does that answer your question? Because I totally forgot what the question was. Oh, yeah. Selling it below market value. Tell you the truth, I wouldn't worry about that because most of your tenant buyers aren't going to buy anyway. So if you want to worry about something, if you insist on worry about something, there's better things to worry about than that.
All right.
Worry about whether we're going to be speaking Chinese one of these days in the near future. That's something to worry about.
A real worry.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on to our next question. We have Danny from Florida.
Okay. Hey, Danny.
Danny says, I recently sent out over 300 yellow letters targeting absentee owners with 80% or more equity. This is my first yellow letter campaign. I have not done any deals as of yet. I'm getting a little lost and wondering if I made the right move with this target clientele. Any suggestions with how I should be looking to structure these deals with little to no money out of my pocket?
Yeah, Danny. And as I always teach and will continue teaching, your best leads are going to come from the leads you have to spend money to acquire. But on the other hand, there's a whole lot of things you can do that don't require your money. In fact, I just did a whole session. I just taped a new locating prospect session yesterday, and we're going to ride down the list of them. That is part of my terms course. If you have that, Danny, and of course it's part of my quick start school. Obviously, I got to teach that in there, and that takes a couple of hours just to go through all those things you can do. But I wish you would have told me whether you've been to any of the classes or not, and I'm not be able to speak your language. But for example, our VAs furnish leads to you if you're a Gold Club member, and you are, you wouldn't be watching this. But they're the lowest quality leads. There's no question about them. They're people that advertise online, and they're I want people chasing me because they're way easier to deal with, get way more deals. But you can run free classified ads all over the internet. Your VAs can do it for you, Danny. I buy house ads. It ain't gonna to flood you with deals, but they're free for crying out loud. And your VA is doing the work. I just give them 3 or 4 classified ads and let them start running them. Worst can happen is you don't get any calls, but if you don't run the ads, you're definitely not going to. And then you can either drive the calls to you or drive them to your Pat Live. I prefer Pat Live so you don't miss the calls. But then think about it. Can you ride around and look for vacant, ugly houses? And can you find vacant, ugly houses with FSBO signs or with realtor signs or with no sign? Okay. The no signs are even better if nobody knows they're for sale, including the owner. And then you can come home and you get online and you have them skip trace to find out where the owner's at. Pick up the phone, call them. And if they don't answer, send them a letter. A lot of deals, we call that driving for dollars for your information. It's free, except for the $5 or $6 to skip trace and whatever it's going to cost. And we've got sources to do. In fact, one comes to my mind, Lead Sherpa, SHERPA. Somebody told me that was a good one. Skip tracing. We got skip tracing within our dream system. There's 2 or 3 people we work with to do skip tracing for you as well. And then, it doesn't cost very much to put out I buy house signs up and down the highway. They say I buy houses, and I'm trying to think here. Running ads, go social media. My goodness gracious, how much is free? You need to get in the chat rooms with groups of all kinds. And honestly, it doesn't make any difference what kind of group it is. If you want to know the truth, because there's people in that group that want to sell their house. And by the way, there's other people that want to buy a house that can't qualify. And you can't get on there and just blatantly advertise. So you got to participate in the chats and then say, hey, by the way, I do buy houses. If anybody's got one for sale, let me know, blah, blah, blah. Of course, that's time consuming. But when you don't have money to spend, you've got no choice but to use time in place of money until you get a deal or two. Hey, what do you think I did? Shit, I didn't have a penny to start with. You couldn't be more broker than I was. When people come to me and cry, I am broke, I can't do anything. Well, you're probably right, because with that stinking attitude, it's true. You can't do anything. Okay. But you tell me, how much money do you need to put an ugly house under contract so you can wholesale it? The answer is zero, maybe $10. Don't tell me you can't raise $10. Okay, but you got to hunt them down one way or the other. So if you got my terms course or my boot camp, and if you got my terms, you're going to get in the boot camp sooner or later. So you might as well make up your mind on that one. I'm telling you the truth, the best investment you can make is getting in the education in order to be able to implement and get deals at whatever financial level you're at right now. Honestly, it would be hard for you to believe, I'm sure, that everybody that comes to me starting with money. And all the success stories, in fact, the ones that people want to brag about the most are the ones where they start with nothing, which is the best way to start. There's only one way to go, man. You got nothing. You have to use your brain and you stair step your deal. Same way I did. Geez, there ain't a person watching this right now as broker than I was when I started. I promise you that. I had nothing to fall back on. No wife working. No, I didn't even have IRAs then. That was in the last century, you know. So I did a first deal, made $3,000, then I did another one, then I did another one. And most of those deals up front were wholesale deals. So, hey, wholesale is a great way for people that are broke to get started, because they don't even have to have negotiating conversations with sellers. They say, hey, what's the least you could accept if I paid you all cash? Is that the best you can do? That's the gist of the conversation. All right. And then you get it under contract and put it on the market and flip it. I hang around with people doing 200 to 300 deals a year, and they never leave their desk, for crying out loud. And it ain't like they go visit the houses and they put up, I don't know, they probably put up $10 every time they buy one from a FSBO. But there's plenty of ways out there. And MLS is another way. You know, you're going to have to put up a deposit if you get a deal under contract in the MLS, probably about $1,000, incidentally. And if it is a institutionally owned property, they might ask for proof of funds. So that can come from anybody who's got a letter, any private lender, your grandmother's IRA account, whatever. They don't have to use the money. You just have to show them that there's money available somewhere, even though it's not necessarily available, if you're going to deal with that. But when you are going after FSBOs, there is no proof of funds. They don't even know what that means. And the deposit is usually $10. Get the training and listen this time if you've already been, and you'll see that starting with little money is the best way to start, because I don't want you spending money generating leads until you can handle the closing call anyway. If you can't handle the closing call, you're just going to waste the leads when you get them. As far as you mailing 300 letters, that's not even a good start. That's not even a test. That's not enough to measure anything. I've been mailing letters for I don't know how many years now, millions and millions of dollars in mail. And frankly, in the world of direct marketing, mailing 5,000 pieces is a good test, not 300. So I don't know if you have a problem with your list, or if somebody screwed up your letter. I don't know any of that, because I can name a lot of things that could go wrong mailing yellow letters or any letters. I would not spend money on mail at your stage of the game if you're worrying about what it costs to mail 300 letters. I mean, nothing against you, but start with what you got to work with. Implement everything you can. I mean, can you put a magnetic sign on your vehicle, for example? So why haven't you done that yet? Assuming you haven't. All right. So how committed are you? And incidentally, this much I'll tell all of you. If you can't make real estate work, do not give up your day job. Tell you that, because if you can't make real estate work, you're not going to make any business work, because you got the same problems in every single business, no matter what your product or service is. And most of them are way, way more complicated than what we do in real estate. And if you don't believe that, go buy a restaurant. That'll serve as a lifelong lesson for you right there. Okay. All this work, all this risk, all this front end investment for such a small amount of money, if you're lucky enough to even break even. I mean, you know as well as I do, restaurants are dropping like flies. And, I can tell you right now, the reason that they're dropping is usually because the owner of the business doesn't have any idea how to get people to come buy their products or service. Okay. And unfortunately for you and everybody else, this process of locating leads is an ongoing learning process, and you're going to do way more things wrong than you do right while you're learning it and getting to the point of what works. Okay. And I'm not telling you that that's, an overnight flip of the switch, but I am telling you, if you'll stay in there and keep doing things, especially those that you don't have to spend a lot of money on, pretty soon you're going to get some deals going, and then you'll be able to invest some money into marketing where you have to pay other people to go get leads for you. Of course, I teach all of that in Quick Start. Incidentally, I got a whole list of those kind of folks, and obviously they're my favorite folks to deal with, because I don't have to do anything except pay them money to get pre-screen leads. Again, just if you don't have a terms course, order it. And if you don't have, if you have not been to Quick Start, get to them. Got one coming up next week in Jacksonville. I can't get in that one. That one's full anyway. I got a virtual next month and another live one in Jacksonville the month after. You guys all get Quick Start School on your plan. It is the beginning of these multi-million-dollar careers out there that you hear people talking about. It's the basic training where, with all of the tools you need to get out there and start. And then, of course, we'll increase your knowledge of your business as we go along. But we got to first get you out there getting deals going and keep you in the loop. We could talk about mentoring there, if you one-on-one help for 6 months, which is frankly one of the biggest keys to success, because it's too easy to quit. It's too easy to give up. It's too easy to make excuses, and you need somebody to push you. We all need mentors. So anyway, enough on that right now. Did I answer that question?
Yeah, I think so.
I have no idea what the question was anymore, but
no, you nailed it. Nailed it on the head. All right, we got one more left, Ron. One more question for today.
We'll probably have more by the time I get to answering it. Huh?
All right, our last one is from Steve. He does not give his state, but Steve says, Ron, one of the objections that the seller has is, what if the tenant tears up the house?
The answer is 3 words. You ready, Steve? I'll fix it. That's your answer. And you will fix it. But here's what you need to understand that your seller does not understand. All right. You're going to get, and don't have this conversation with your seller. Okay. Your answer is, I'll fix it. And it's in our agreement that it's my responsibility. Okay. End of discussion. Don't be saying, I'm going to put a tenant buyer in there and I'm going to get a great big deposit from them, so I ain't worried about them tearing it up, blah, 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 blah. But that is the truth. That is what you're going to do. Remember, when somebody's giving you 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, $50,000 for a non-refundable deposit, they're not going to tear up your house. Okay. They're a different breed of human. In fact, they're going to call you and apologize when they leave if they can't buy the house. Believe me, they think differently, think like owners. All right. But hey, what if they did tear up your house? All right. Well, a smart thing for you to do is take some of that money you got up front on that non-refundable deposit and set it aside for things like that, so you don't have to worry about it all the time. All right. You sometimes will have to do things in between tenants. I got one right now that we had to. I went in there and totally renovated the thing. But on the other hand, I've had 6 tenants in there over I don't know, I think 2014 or so, or 2012 when I bought it. And I've collected more in deposits than I paid for the property, for crying out loud, plus all this rent all this time. So, if I had to go renovate that thing, so what? It's a little 2-bedroom, 1-bath. I think I've spent 20 grand renovating it. So what? So it's part of the beast. But on the other hand, I made sure that their money was there to fix it with the time when I felt like it was time to fix it. So, in other words, don't spend every dime you get. Set some of your proceeds aside, and we call that a reserve account, to comply with contingencies. And you're going to sleep a whole lot better knowing that that account is there. In fact, you're going to be proud of yourself when you need that account, and you're smart enough to set it aside, because I promise you, most investors do not do that, and they live day to day, and they live paycheck to paycheck. And now when something goes wrong, they got to come out of pocket and fix it. And that starts a domino effect of not managing the properties well. And next thing you know, you got a great big mess, properties that need work. You can't rent them. You don't know where to get the money from to fix you, and just creates a big, look, I've been around a long time. Trust me. You ain't seen a problem that I haven't experienced or have other people experience along the way. And I've seen many, many people go out of business because they didn't handle their cash flow correctly and didn't, they forgot one thing. Sooner or later, that property is going to want some of that money back. Okay. You better have it available when it does, because it will. And if you're, by the way, if you're trying to live off a rental income, stop it. Go get another source of income.
That's right.
Because all you're doing is taking money away from properties that are going to want it back later. You're robbing Peter to pay Paul, and all you're going to end up with is sore Peter. That was a joke. You get
that? I got it.
But it's true. It's called the cash flow shuffle. And I've seen so many people do it. They buy a house, then they go refinance the house, then they pull some cash out. Next thing you know, the cash is gone, but the debt's on there long term. And the cash flow is very skinny. And now when something goes wrong, cash flow goes away and becomes negative very fast. Now multiply that by 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 houses. And it's we call that bankruptcy.
That's right. Well, Ron,
all about mismanagement
here, but we're running out of time for our meeting. You want to talk about the event we have coming up at the end of the month?
Oh, yeah, I guess we, if they haven't already heard about it, I'm sure they have, but on the last day of the month, which is the 31st, isn't it? Okay.
Yep.
First 2 days of June, I'm going to be filming. And the first 2 days of that event, I'm redoing the terms course, literally redoing it, retaping it, reproducing it, and bringing it more current. And then I'm going to redo the wholesaling course. The two fastest ways to make money are right there for your information. The terms course, big deposit, and a wholesale flip. So I'm redoing both of those. And then on the third day, I'm going to have a couple of guest speakers come in and cover subjects that we get pounded on all the time. So it's a 3-day event and it's free. And I don't know how to sign up for it. So you brought it up.
Go down below. I'll throw out the link.
Okay. I start at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I don't honestly know what time we're going to quit. I'm thinking maybe around 5 o'clock or so, because I haven't done this before, so I'm guessing at the time frames. We'll have plenty of time for questions and answers all along the way.